The film opens with a lively scene as a young kid excitedly chases after a ball in the confines of his home. Suddenly his father enters the scene. He scoops up his child and playfully wrestles with him while covering the distance to the lounge. As they enter, the lively chatter from the other members of the family and the sound from the television fills the air. A girl is sitting on the couch completely engrossed in the talk show playing on the TV, and two women are working in an attached kitchen behind. The child, still in his father's embrace, points out that Uncle Marcus is making an appearance at the live broadcasting of the talk show. One of the women in the kitchen is their mom, Diana, and the other is the grandma who is busy preparing food which Terry, the dad, thinks is for them, and tells his mom they don't need food for the flight. The kid asks his parents as to where they are going, but his sister, Kenya, replies, immediately telling him that they are going on a trip with the rest of their uncles and aunts, and to his disappointment no kids are allowed. As she names all the aunts and uncles who will be joining their parents on the trip, her parents correct her that one of their uncles, Mike, will not be joining them, as he and Aunt Sheila are divorced, and instead, Uncle Troy will be accompanying her. The kid asks what a divorce is to his parents. Terry immediately opens the door of the fridge and pretends to be busy because he doesn't want to be the one to reply to the question. Their grandma tells him divorce is something he should not be worried about as their parents will never get one, successfully avoiding the awkward question. Just as Terry compliments his mom for being so good with the kids, their daughter perfectly defines the concept of divorce to the boy, shocking everyone in the room. Terry jokingly taunts his wife, Diana, for making her go to a private school, suggesting that it is there where she hears all the adult stuff. The scene changes and the parents are bidding farewell to their kids and leaving for the airport. At the airport, Diana gets coffee for Terry and herself, and as soon as she sits back down, they hear some squabbling which Terry expertly guesses must be Marcus and his wife Angela. They both argue their way to them, and after greeting each other, both husbands check on the flight to the Bahamas, which is already delayed. Angela complains to Diana about Marcus being very arrogant after the job at the TV show. She then sees Marcus flirting with one of the ladies at the counter. She goes up to him angrily and creates a scene, forcing Marcus to also take her number in a sarcastic and enraged manner. Following this scene, a car stops by a seaside suite and another couple, Sheila and Troy, climb out of the car and receive a luxurious welcome at the entrance, with numerous waiters standing in line. They also offer them 2 margaritas in poshly decorated glasses. Sheila and Troy are both impressed at the entire setup, including the beautiful suite. However, Troy expresses his worry of still being unemployed and having difficulty in finding a job. He states that they should be saving this money instead of wasting it on trips. But Sheila reassures him, telling him to calm down and enjoy the trip without being worked up because of his job. They are joined by the 4th couple who also arrive at the suite, Patricia and Gavin. After a warm and vibrant welcome, Patricia asks Sheila about the baby, but gets upset when Sheila asks her about their plans for more children. As they are conversing, they hear the sound of a car pulling up and the same squabbling noises. Both Sheila and Patricia look at each other smiling, as they too realize that Marcus and Angela have arrived. Terry and Diana walk out of the car hurriedly to escape the fight and meet the others, while complaining about their travel with Marcus and Angela due to their constant quarrels and never-ending arguments. After the general meetup, all the men go to the beach where the main topic of discussion is how irrational their wives can be at times. Marcus complains about Angela's constant problems and issues. The women are all inside the suite, talking about their husbands with margaritas in their hands, which Patricia makes upon Angela's special request. While they are talking, Mike, Sheila's ex-husband, walks inside, erasing the smiles from all their faces. Angela angrily stands up and rudely asks Mike why he is there. Mike replies that he's also there to have fun. He then looks at Sheila and congratulates her for having a baby. However, Sheila has her face turned the other way and refuses to respond to Mike. He then leaves them and goes to join all the men outside. They too are not happy to see Mike appear uninformed, especially Troy. There is an exchange of bitter cold words between Mike and Troy, and all 3 husbands leave Mike and go back inside to their wives to discuss this new issue. Although they all unanimously agree that Mike cannot stay, they can't do much, or force him to leave. Sheila mentions that they can't leave because of Mike, since they already spent all their money on this trip. Diana assures Sheila that they will have fun regardless and will not let Mike ruin it. Following this conversation, Troy calls Sheila upstairs and stubbornly tells her not to mention anything regarding their financial troubles to the others. Sheila tries to assure him that all of them are her friends and are good people, but Troy does not budge, saying he does not want others butting in their business. Sensing the seriousness of his tone, Sheila has no other option but to do as he says. The scene changes with all the men on a cruise except Troy, who did not join because of Mike. Marcus tells everyone that he caught a 13-feet-long fish last time he was in the Bahamas, but he is laughed at by the others knowing he's full of crap. They are having a fun time, but Mike ruins the mood by expressing his feelings about his divorce with Sheila, but confessing that he misses her as well. He tries to ask Marcus and the others if Sheila ever talked about him, but they just tell him that Sheila has already moved on. Also, Terry mistakenly tells Mike that Troy is currently unemployed but pleads not to mention his slip-up to Troy. Meanwhile, all the ladies are receiving massages at the beach, and Sheila is still whining about Mike's sudden appearance. They are all gossiping about their husbands when Angela loudly calls for drinks to be served to them, making everyone laugh at her boldness. Afterwards, everyone gathers to play cards on the beach, but Mike constantly tries to annoy Troy by saying he can't play well. Troy keeps ignoring him and Sheila constantly warns Mike. He ends up asking Troy about his job search, which finally ticks off Troy, so he very rudely shuts Mike up. Sheila smiles at Troy's aggressive reaction and feels proud of her husband. However, he feels angry and insulted as he thinks Sheila told Mike about this unemployment. He therefore resorts to avoiding his wife and being distant and cold. Later at night, just before going to bed, Sheila confronts Troy for his attitude and tries to clarify that it wasn't her who told Mike anything. But Troy seems unaffected and says he just wants to sleep. Sheila is trying to solve the crisis, but she feels like Troy is avoiding her. After some arguments, they make amends and cuddle together to sleep. On the other hand, Angela is forcing Marcus to give her his phone password because she does not trust him, whilst quoting a book that Patricia wrote to support her stance. Marcus does not want to give away his privacy to Angela, and their argument over this escalates into a fight. Marcus's last resort is to kiss his wife aggressively to not only shut her up, but also to divert her mind off his phone. From here, the scene shifts to Terry and Diana's bedroom. She is sitting on the bed and Terry seductively approaches her. As he closes up on her, she mistakenly calls him Phil. Terry's suspicion is awakened. When he asks who Phil is, she makes up an excuse that doesn't satisfy Terry, but he lets it go. Later during the night, both of them wake up to the sound of heated arguments. Diana realizes the sounds are coming from Patricia and Gavin's room and she goes out to check up on them. As Diana walks out of her room, she sees Patricia climbing down the stairs. Diana asks her about the noise, and although Patricia has tears in her eyes, she refuses to tell Diana anything and keeps reassuring her that everything is in fact all right. This, of course, is not convincing at all for Diana. After urging her to talk multiple times, Diana gives up and goes back to sleep because Patricia refuses to say a word. The next morning, Sheila is making breakfast for Troy when Mike walks in. He repeatedly tries to make conversation with her, but she keeps ignoring him. Mike starts to talk about their past and all the good times they shared to make Sheila emotional. She finally speaks up, telling him how depressed she used to be, and how unfair he was to her in their marriage. Mike tries to approach her to apologize, but she shrugs him off rudely and tells him to leave the kitchen. The next scene shows Angela walking out of the water towards the benches on the beach, where the rest of the three ladies are taking sun baths and relaxing. Suddenly, Angela gets splattered with what feels like sand all over her body. As she turns to see the source of this incident, she sees an old couple rushing towards her. They apologize to her, blaming the winds for it. They tell her that they were there to pour the ashes of their dead friend into the sea, but as soon as they emptied the jar, it got blown away by the wind and hit Angela. Hearing this, her facial expressions shift to horror and shock, and she starts screaming and runs back to the water to wash off the ashes. Seeing her overreaction, Patricia, Diana, and Sheila burst out laughing. They approach the old couple standing and politely introduce themselves. The couple also introduces themselves as Portia Jones and Ola. They apologize for the accident and tell the girls that they are here to watch the fireworks at night. After some conversation, Patricia invites the couple to have dinner with them at their suite since it's their last night in the Bahamas. After dinner, all four couples and Mr. and Mrs. Jones are sitting on the beach on comfortable sofas, arms wrapped around each other and wine glasses in their hands. In the front, there is a small wooden chair-like structure, on which each of the couples has to stand and tell the others why they got married to their partners. This is a standard ritual that they do every time they go on a trip together. Sheila and Troy walk up the stage after Terry and Diana, and Troy starts to talk about his wife lovingly. Sheila also expresses how happy she is in her marriage. Mike's face is full of regret seeing her, but it's too late to do anything. Angela and Marcus pass their turns to Gavin and Patricia, but they invite Joan and Ola to come up and speak first. The two share some words regarding pure love and its importance, making everyone emotional. As they walk down the stage, Diana calls Patricia and Gavin for their turn. Reluctantly, they stand on the stage and Diana tries to stem the awkwardness by saying how much they love each other. Things, however, take a turn when Patricia announces that she and Gavin have decided to get a divorce. Although she makes it seem like a mutual decision, Gavin is completely taken aback by this announcement and disappointingly walks down the stage and away from Patricia. The scene changes to a room with four people wearing professional attire, sitting across from each other. On one side, Patricia is sitting with Diana, who is a lawyer, and on the other side, Gavin is sitting with a lawyer named Phil. They are discussing the terms and arrangements of this divorce. Phil compliments them for being so professional and mature about this decision. Things, however, take an awkward turn when Gavin suggests splitting up Patricia's money she earned from her books equally, just like all the other assets. Patricia rejects this, saying that she solely earned that money and Gavin has no right to even a penny of it. This causes a rift in the meeting and things take a turn for the worst. Gavin blames Patricia for their failed marriage, saying she has never been the same after the passing of their son Noah. Patricia walks out of the meeting crying, and Diana follows her. On the other hand, Troy is still struggling to get a job. He comes home in a sullen mood and blames Sheila for making them shift from Colorado, where he had a successful career. Due to their financial crisis, their relationship is also being affected. Sheila proposes to take money from Patricia or Diana, but this further hurts Troy's ego, making him react aggressively toward Sheila. Terry's suspicions are once again refreshed when Diana brings home a bouquet, saying she bought it from the florist. However, Terry sees a card stand in the flowers, and when he asks about it, Diana blames the florist for making a mistake. Once again, Terry does not believe her entirely but lets it go. At the other end, Gavin comes home drunk and gets aggressive with Patricia when she says he should probably shift somewhere else. He forces Patricia to drink, pouring alcohol all over her. He burns the album where she kept all of Noah's pictures. Patricia calls him psychotic, and he exits the room barely being able to walk straight. Meanwhile, Sheila enters a restaurant all dressed up and walking towards the table where Mike is sitting. They greet each other and Mike expresses how shocked he was to receive her call. Ignoring him, Sheila gets straight to the point, asking him if he would call his friend in the police to help Troy in getting a job. Although he is disappointed hearing this, he agrees to help. He tries to tell Sheila that he understands the mistakes he made and that he misses her, but she is unaffected by everything he says. She walks away saying the girls are waiting for her at the other table. Sheila meets Angela and Diana at the other table. Angela is telling Diana that she thinks Marcus is cheating. Her neighbor told her she's been hearing noises from their bedroom around the time when Angela is off at work. Patricia was supposed to join them, but she has yet to reply to any of their calls or messages. Hence, all three of them visit her house to check on her. They knock on the door, ring the bell, and even call out to her, but she doesn't respond, although she's sitting inside smoking cigarettes. So they go back home, giving up. When Sheila enters her home, Troy tells her that he got a job and they hug each other, putting all the differences and fights behind them. The next day, Gavin calls Terry and Marcus to help him move out of Patricia's house. When they arrive, they see Gavin sitting in front of a big glass door. When they ask him to open the door so they can go in and start packing, he picks up a flower pot and throws it on the glass, shattering it to pieces. Terry and Marcus are shocked and worried, but Gavin simply justifies that Patricia changed the locks. Just as they enter and Terry is trying to talk some sense into Gavin after seeing his disturbed state, Patricia walks in. Seeing the door, she gets chaotic and starts breaking everything in the house with Gavin's hockey sticks, cursing him simultaneously. Then she orders every one of them to get out of her house and go upstairs. Gavin picks his things up and leaves without a word. On the other hand, Angela is still persistent on knowing who Marcus is bringing home, so she decides to spy on them, taking a day off from work. She takes a gun out of her closet and barges into her bedroom where she sees her maid being intimate with some guy named Alex. Enraged and confused, she shoots the gun several times on the wall above the bed and tells them to get out of her house, screaming at the top of her lungs, completely unhinged. At night, Angela is waiting for Marcus on her sofa. He is working late again and Angela has his phone with her as well. As Marcus enters the house, tired from the long day at work, Angela starts screaming at him for not informing her about it. He points out that she had taken his phone in her custody and that is why he could not inform her about him working late. Instead of calming down, she starts fighting him over the fact that someone has been calling his phone all day and not answering back when she picks it up. Just as she's saying this, another bell rings and she picks up the call, but no one talks back. Seeing this, Marcus tells Angela that the bell is for messages and not calls, which is why no one is talking back to her. She's been mistaking text messages for a call all day. Finally, Angela feels sorry and calms down. She apologizes and hugs Marcus just when the sound of a bell starts ringing from Marcus's briefcase. Turns out he was hiding another phone which he was taking with him to work. And just like that, they start fighting again. The very next scene shows Terry sitting on his bed, talking to Diana, who is standing in front of the dressing table. Terry is explaining to her the incident at Patricia and Gavin's place, when he notices that Diana is taking out short, revealing clothes to wear to work the next day. This time, Terry finally confronts her about his suspicions and she ends up agreeing that it is Philip, her colleague from work, but assures him that they haven't been in a physical relationship and she just likes him. Terry's eyes fill up with tears. Diana hugs him and apologizes repeatedly, but he just shrugs her off and walks out of the bedroom. Meanwhile, someone tells Troy at work that he was recommended by a guy named Mike because his wife asked him to help her husband with a job. Hearing this, Troy asks for Mike's home address and goes to his house. He bangs on the door and to his shock, Sheila opens the door. Seeing this, Troy loses his temper and gets all wild. He shouts at Sheila, asking her why on earth is she at Mike's place. She tries to tell him that Mike has cancer and she's just helping him with chemotherapy, but Troy is too enraged to listen to a word. He advances towards Mike, who is lying on the sofa, picks him up from his collar, and punches him in the face. Sheila is screaming and crying, and any attempt to stop Troy is useless. He angrily leaves the house. Mike apologizes to Sheila as he thinks it's his fault he called her to help him in the first place. Shortly after, Diana, Angela, and Sheila visit Patricia's house again, and they see the broken door. The glass is still scattered around the floor and all the lights are turned off. They turn around to see Patricia sitting on the stairs. She is in the worst state, but she simply tells them to leave. Diana asks her if she would let them stay on the condition that they won't say anything, to which she doesn't respond. All three of them sit with her on the stairs and hug her as she weeps quietly. The next day, Gavin, Terry, Mike, and Marcus are sitting in a bar having drinks, and Mike tells everyone about his cancer. Terry shares the issue with Diana and Philip and says he wants a divorce, but Gavin suggests him not to, as he is already going through one and knows how it feels. Troy also shows up and apologizes to Mike for punching him. Mike says it's alright and tells him to trust his wife. Gavin leaves to get back to work. While working in his office, he sees Patricia coming into the office with a huge cardboard cake and announces that it's her husband's birthday. Everyone starts singing the birthday song, including her. Gavin, however, is standing still, staring at Patricia angrily because it's not his birthday, and he knows Patricia isn't here with goodwill. As the song finishes, a man wearing feminine clothes pops out of the cardboard box as an attempt to humiliate Gavin. He tries to take Patricia out of his office, but she gets wild and starts screaming at him in front of everyone. She says that he doesn't deserve her money and she won't give him anything. Gavin leaves the office, gets in his car and drives away, leaving Patricia behind, still cursing at him. Suddenly, a truck comes out of nowhere and hits Gavin's car badly, possibly injuring him very seriously. The next scene is at the hospital where everyone is gathered and Patricia is in the worst state possible. She blames herself for the accident and says she doesn't care about the money, she just wants Gavin to be alright. She warns everyone not to end up like her and make amends in their marriages. Just then the doctor comes and gives them the news that they could not save Gavin and he is gone. Patricia is rendered speechless. Everyone is back at the beach where they all are gathered in memory of Gavin. All of them are dressed in white and they light up floating lanterns in his memory to say a proper goodbye. 1 year later, Patricia is a professor at a prestigious institution, and she's coming out of one of her many lectures when another professor named Lillian stops her to talk. She starts by praising her lecture on healing, to which Patricia replies she knows a lot about it. Following this, Lillian proposes that a philanthropist was attending her lecture, and he wants to have a word with Patricia. She is reluctant to say yes, but Lillian tries to convince her that he funds their institution, so it would be really good if Patricia would just meet him. So she agrees and Lillian calls the guy. A tall, brown, handsome-looking man in a suit shows up and formally introduces himself as Daniel Franklin. He apologizes for meeting her this way but expresses how big of a fan he is of her books. He further adds that her books helped him go through a rough divorce. Patricia humbly thanks him, and to her surprise, Daniel confidently asks her out for coffee. Patricia approvingly smiles back at him. She has healed. Perhaps it is now time for her to forgive herself too.